We're exploring Likutei Sichos, volume 24, Sicha for Shoftim, Sicha number 2. And this is about the phrase in today's portion, man is like a tree. And it's interesting, it's always been curious to me why we make such a big deal about Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of trees. There are many answers from the Rebbe to people that you'll be blessed because today's the 15th of Shvat. Like, who cares? Why is there a connection? I remember watching a recording of a Sunday Dollars, and many people come by, as was customary, and telling the Rebbe different problems. This guy needs a shidduch for his daughter. This guy, God forbid, is a health problem in the family. This, that, and the other, the whole full array. And watching the video, this is the unedited videos of Dollars. It was Tu B'Shvat, Chamisha Asa B'Shvat, 15th of Shvat. And the Rebbe gave the same answer to almost everybody. Abraham is Rosh Hashanah Leilanis. Today's the New Year for trees. And they looked at the Rebbe, okay. And I can't pay the mortgage. It's New Year for trees. Okay. I can't marry off my daughter. But it's New Year for trees. As if that's the answer to all the questions, which is so interesting. The Rebbe made a big deal out of it. Like, why? Why? And people on this Sicha brings it home. On the face of it, you say, well, it's man is like a tree. We learn lessons. There's a lot of similarities. We have roots. We have fruits, which are the Torah scholars and the mitzvahs, and we have branches, which are the supporters of Torah. And Pirkei Avos talks about the comparison, how a person who has a lot of Yiras Shamayim, fear of Hashem, his roots are strong. And a person who has a lot of mitzvahs, his many leaves and fruits. And the question is what's stronger, etc. There are many comparisons. But that's why we should celebrate the New Year of Trees. And that's why if it's Chamisha Asa B'Shvat, all the problems are solved. It's like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. So the Rebbe in this, and now, even though the Torah says a man is like a tree, man is like other things too. There's 4 Rosh Hashanahs in the Torah. And one is the New Year for tree, one is the New Year, for example, for animals. And this was nominally the fiscal year of the tithing. So when do I tithe my fruits and my trees? Based on the New Year for trees, to B'Shvat. When do I tithe my animals? Or what have you, based on the New Year for animals. So maybe we should also celebrate, that we should also not say Tachnun and make a big deal. It's a New Year for animals. I forgot when it is. I think it's Rosh Chodesh Adar. It doesn't make a difference. Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But we don't do that. We don't even know what it is. It's in the Gemara. It's a true thing, but we don't talk about it. The New Year for trees, we celebrate. Well, we have nothing in common with animals, only trees. Last time I checked, we're more like animals than trees. We're living beings. Our Yetzer Hara is compared to an animal. The Jewish people, the 12 tribes of Israel, are compared to animals. I mean, these are my questions, but the Sicha alludes to it. I'm just embellishing on the question. The Sicha is exciting because it takes something that we take for granted. New Year for trees, which is a big deal. We don't say Tachnun, and we say it's a blessing for mankind and for the Jewish people, etc., etc. And we don't do this by anything else. Because there's a tremendous connection between the trees and the human being and the Jewish people. And the question is, why? Okay, so that's just the general question of the Sicha. Now, the way the Sicha begins is that based on the Gemara and Talmud, the Gemara says that the verse teaches us, Adam Eitzasad, man is like a tree. To translate the verse literally, man is tree, not like. Ki ha'adam eitzasad, the man is a tree of the field. Says the Talmud, is man a tree in the field? But rather, what it's teaching us is that we know it tells you in the story, in the verse, that the context is that if you're going to war and you need to cut down a tree in order to create a shelter. If you have a tree that's fruit-bearing, don't cut it down. You could eat from it. If you have a tree that's not fruit-bearing, you can chop it down. Aha! So why does it say man is tree if you're looking for a teacher of Torah? Obviously, he's a Talmud Chacham, a Torah scholar. Otherwise, he's not going to have what to teach you. But you should look for more than that. You should look for Talmud Chacham Hagun, one who is a Torah scholar who is also refined, let's call it. who's a good person. And that's the tree you should keep, you should learn from, take the fruits. Whereas the one who's not proper, says the Talmud, you should cut him down. Rashi explains to mean you should walk away. He's not a good teacher for you. That's the Talmud. So the Rebbe says, what is the Gemara telling us? Most of the commentaries, including Rashi in this case, read it that the Gemara is saying, the verse says man is a tree. Is man a tree? The Gemara answers, man is not a tree. But man is likened to a tree. There's an analogy of man to a tree. How so? By way of example, just like a tree, some you embrace and some you cut down. You're a Torah scholar, teacher, some you embrace and some you cut down. But the Rebbe says, this is a rare instance that I'm noticing that the Rebbe is learning different than Rashi. Obviously, the Rebbe is not arguing with the Rashi. The Rashi would be on the level of Talmudic study. Rashi is analyzing it, but the Rebbe here is actually, in a sense, going more literal. The Talmud says, Rashi says the Talmud's question is man a tree? And the Talmud answers, no, he's likened to a tree. There's an analogy. The Rebbe says that you need to also study the Talmud quite literally. Because if the Talmud is just concluding that man is actually not a tree, but he is analogous to a tree, so why do I need this example of your Talmud Chacham teacher? The Talmud is replete with examples of how you compare man to a tree, like we said before, the roots and the fruits and the mitzvahs, etc. If you're rooted with good deeds, you will never be blown down. And Pirkei Avos, there are many, many comparisons, the man to a tree. So if the Talmud, the Rebbe says that on the most basic level, I guess, being most true to the words of the Gemara, it's not retracting its original statement, which is true to the words of the Torah. Man is a tree. The question is man actually a tree, not just by way of analogy? Yeah, and let me explain to you how. So how is that? And how is the analogy of this teacher, whether or not this Talmud Chacham teacher of yours is refined or not, how is that helping us to understand this Talmudic statement and biblical verse that he's actually a tree? So the Rebbe says, let's analyze a tree and in general plant life. What's special about it and unique about it? That it remains rooted in its place. It stays true to its roots for the entire duration of its lifetime. The minute it's disconnected from its roots, it's no longer tzomeach. It's not a living tree. Tzomeach, with the translation of the word tzomeach, means a growing being, vegetation. The minute it loses its roots, it's not growing. He grew up, became strong and big. No. It is for an entire duration of his lifetime, it could be 100 years, more. It is rooted in its source, which is unique to trees, in general to vegetation, and particularly in trees, it's more pronounced than, let's say, in vegetables or in wheat and things that get cut off completely. And in a tree, the whole tree remains and over many, many years and still rooted in its source. It's unique to tree. Whereas, for example, it is said that animals and people also come from the earth. That's their source. And yet they don't stay in their source. They don't stay rooted to their source. They leave their source. Even though in some way it's explained that we come, Hakol Hoyam and Afar, everything came from the dust. That's why we go back to the dust. But we don't identify with that source. We move out. We move away. Trees stay rooted. They never leave home. The only thing that never leaves its source are fish. However, fish too don't bring home this message well enough. First of all, fish, they always stay in their water, but they don't stay in the same water. They can move from the river to the ocean to the sea. So in a sense, they do navigate. They don't stay rooted. But conversely, and I think this is the main point that Rebbe wants to make, fish stay in their source. So of course they never leave, because they never become separate. The beauty of a tree is it, from its roots under the ground, it grows to this big tree. It can be giant, be 100 feet up with branches and fruits, and forget about it. And yet, even as it becomes a whole trask, it is remaining rooted. So this is unique. So the beauty of a tree and vegetation in general is in the concept that it never leaves its source. Even though it does become a big thing, it doesn't stay home like the fish, who actually never leave their source at all. No, it grows out, it becomes something, but it never moves. It is rooted. Says the Rebbe, since that is the edge of vegetation, the edge of tree, the specialness, uniqueness of tree, now let's look within the person itself. We know from Torah and Chassidus that within the human being, there's all four categories of creation in a microcosm. The four categories: Daimim, Tzameach, Chai, Medaber, inanimate plant, human, and animal. Inanimate plant, animal, and human. These are the four categories of creation, which parenthetically mirror the four elements of creation, the four letters of Hashem's name. It's not random. So, being that everything is within a person itself, if you take a look, you can find all four, a little bit of all four, or an expression of all four. The inanimate is the body. The plant is the emotion, because emotion, like plant, grow. More on that in a moment. The animal kingdom, so to speak, is expressed within the human in intellect. More on that in a moment. And the human of the human, that's his neshama. So the highest and the lowest are easy to understand. How is the inanimate within me my human? My physical, it's inanimate, you touch it. How is the intellect within, how is the neshama in me? That's the human within me, because the neshama, the free choice, that's what's uniquely human. I'm a human, I have a sense of self, a sense of legacy, a sense of freedom, a free choice, whatever it is that makes a human unique. But then you have those two levels in the middle. So meach and chai, plant and animal within the human, is the emotion and the intellect. So the Rebbe explains well, as explained in Chassidus, that emotion, like a tree, it never moves from its place. Translation: the emotional character with which you're born, that's pretty much who you are for your whole life. When it comes to intellect, a person's opinions can change, a person's ideas can change. Like an animal who moves from place to place, try to tie down an animal to its place, it's going to go mishiga. The nature, the basic need of any animal is to roam free. Within the human being, the mind roams free. He can completely change his mind. The reason why most people don't change their minds is because most people's minds are not really based on seichel. They're based on emotion, and therefore we're stuck in our ways. But if a person was really an intellectual person and really open-minded person, so to speak, the whole idea of mind is, let me learn something new. I move about. I'm not stuck. I'm not rooted in any which way. And that's the power of the mind. That's why Chabad, the mind, can make a person about tshuva. It can change a person completely. Take it from being terrible to being a tzaddik, because the mind moves about. It explores. It's objective. The emotion, by contrast, though, you are the emotion. They're rooted in your soul. It doesn't change. Your character, your personality. Let's say you're a soft, kind person, or you're a tough, mean person, or you're a judgmental person, you're a non-judgmental person, et cetera, et cetera. Let's call it the 7 emotions. Whatever you're born with, that's who you are. The Rebbe is going to say that's not bad news. That's just the reality. And how do we see that that's the plant within the person? Because like the tree, it's rooted. It's rooted in your neshama. It's who you are. This is you. If you want to change your character, that means the translation is, I want to become another person. And that's impossible. It's a very rare occasion that somebody changes their character. And that would be analogous of uprooting the tree and planting it elsewhere. It's doable. It's a very high level. And for tzaddikim, maybe whatever. But basically, a person's character, that defines them. Why is that not bad news? Chassidus tells us we're supposed to refine our character. We're supposed to change. We're supposed to mature. Yeah. Just like the tree. It grows from a tiny seed in the ground. It becomes a giant tree. We don't have to change our character, but yeah, we grow up. We mature. So instead of the kindness being a weakness, as kindness can often be. Instead of love being lust or neediness, instead of let's call Gevura, a person who's judgmental and exacting and disciplining coming across as negative. All these things can be positive. Love can be a strength, it can be giving. Gevura can be exactness and precision in things that you do, and precision on your own behavior. Everything, every one of the 7 emotions can be good or bad, or better, or even better. So the tree can grow. You're a little seedling and you can become a giant tree with fruits and everything else. You don't stay the same at all, but you don't move. It's rooted. Whatever your character is, it's rooted. Don't try to change it. And, I sit in, a lot of people mistake me for a priest or for a therapist. And often people will say, I wish I could change this or that about my character. And the Sicha is helping us by telling us the plain truth. It's impossible. If this is the type of person that you are, that's who you are meant to be, and that's who you're going to be. And that's what the phrase means. Adam eitz hasadeh. Man is not likened to a tree. Man is also likened to a tree. Man is likened to a lot of things. Man is a tree. You want to find the essence of the person. Which part of the person is the him? The tree in him. The emotions. The intellect is wonderful. It's a gift that you're given. But who are you? The emotions. I once heard a similar analogy that the physical makeup of a person, there's the head of the body and then the hands and feet. The head is primarily the seat of the intellect. The body is primarily, in this conversation, the seat of the emotion. And the hands and feet is where the expression of action. But when I say you, I'm talking about the body. You. So the body, the emotion, that's you. You are also gifted the ability to act on things and behave, your hands and feet. You are also gifted the ability to think and grow and learn new ideas, the mind. But when we say you, referring to the emotion. Like the old Jackie Mason joke. So who's the real you? The emotion. That's what Torah will teach you. That's your character, that's rooted, that's who you are. Changing that is like becoming a new person. That's not really possible. And nor does it need to be. And therefore, however, like the tree, it's rooted in place. This is who you are. However, it grows and you refine it, and you use all of these characters in a good way, which is such an instructive thing, by the way. And again, I think much of society is busy running around trying to become a different person. We're arguably the most comfortable generation in history, and arguably there's more people going to therapy than ever in history. And a lot of it is that they want to become someone else. Maybe I could change it. I'm too soft, I'm too hard, I'm too nice, I'm too mean. Don't change. Embrace you. And character, that's you. However, figure out how to use that character in a good way. So let's say arguably the person is a very sensitive person. Use it in a good way. Become sensitive to others. Like the tree, grow up. Person is a very tough person. Use it in a good way. Be tough on yourself. Be exacting in your mitzvahs, etc., etc. Shammai and Hillel were opposing polar opposites in personality, even though they were both perfect tzaddikim. And the same is with every other human characteristic. The tree doesn't move, it just grows. So with this, the Rebbe explains the language of the Gemara. And like I said before, reads it literally. Is man a tree? And the answer is yes. Meaning, you're looking to find what you really are. What's the real you? It's your emotion. It's the tree in you. And how is that expressed? In the analogy of the teacher. Remember, some trees you're supposed to keep, maintain, and eat the fruit. That's the teacher that is a Talmud Chacham, but he's also Hagun, he's also refined. You should learn from him. Take the fruits. Some trees you'll have to cut them down. That represents an analogy of the teacher. He may be a Talmud Chacham, a scholar, but he doesn't have refinement in character. Cut him down, walk away from him, find another teacher. What is the point? Says that Rebbe, now the point has meaning. It's not just another expression. It's not just one example of how man is compared to tree, and when you embrace the tree and when you reject the tree, which you might read that Talmud on face value. The Rebbe shows us in his signature way how it's precise. Where do we see the concept expressed in Avodas Hashem, in our service of Hashem? That what is the real you, the emotion? In the fact that Yiddishkeit demands Yes, Torah study and learning and everything, but having it affect your emotion. In the language of the Torah, you should know the truth about Hashem, etc. But the goal is to bring it to your heart and refine you. And therefore, when you're looking for a Talmid Chacham, for a teacher, it's not just the scholarship alone that's enough, but it's whether or not he's hugging, and refined in character. Now you know that you got a tree that's worth learning from. So now the words of the Talmud are essential. It's not just one expression of a tree in the analogy of man, but rather it's an expression in Avodas Hashem where you see the centrality of emotion, translation, the inner tree, that's the real you. So much so you might have a great Talmid Chacham. You're going to say, who cares about his character? You can't learn Torah from him if he's not refined. Walk away. Cut that tree down in a sense. Walk away from it. Rabbi brings at the end of the Sicha a few interesting expressions of this thought. One is that whatever is true within the individual is true in the Jewish people. And we see that the Jewish people are defined by the fact that we're the children of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And the language is, the verse says that this is the prophet Bilam, that he saw them in their source, in their root. And the translation of it is that the root is Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that we have the attributes. What do we inherit from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? As explained all over in the Torah, in the Tanya chapter 18, that we all inherit from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov a natural love of Hashem and Yiras Shamayim, fear of heaven, which is Yitzchak's thing, that he was ready to give his life for Hashem. And from Yaakov, compassion. This is a natural inherency. A love for God. You inherit a love for God. Like since when do you inherit love for somebody? The answer is yes, we do. Even though Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov have tremendous intellectual capacities, Abraham represents a tremendous level of knowledge that you don't inherit. You got to do it yourself because you don't inherit intellect. However, we do inherit the emotion, because what do you inherit from an heir? What do you inherit from your ancestors? You inherit that which is genetically essential. Being that we know that emotion, that's the person. Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, with all their lofty spiritual, intellectual levels notwithstanding, who are they? Chesed, love, gevura, discipline, and fear of heaven, and rachmim, compassion, and every single yid forever and ever will inherit those three things. So that's a clear example of this truism that the Rebbe is teaching us from the Sicha. Adam Eitzasadeh, man is the tree in him. That's the real him. The Rebbe takes away a lesson that, like the tree, it's rooted, and yet it becomes big and goes out. We said before, nothing else does that. The animals and humans walk away from the root, from their source. The fish stay embedded in, they don't really become anything. The tree is the thing that becomes something, and at the same time it's rooted. The Rebbe says the roots is the analogy of when the person is in yeshiva. They're in an environment of studying Torah and the spirituality, and they're rooting themselves, they're connecting. The tree growing out, conversely, is the analogy of the rest of your life when you're out there in the real world. And the analogy and the celebration of the tree represents to even as you go out, always stay rooted, meaning always remember that which you learned in yeshiva and remain rooted in that thought process. And similarly, the person who is while he's in yeshiva, he's rooting, he's taking root. He's learning Torah a whole day, just surrounded. He needs to prepare himself for the stage of when the tree will blossom, meaning and therefore, even as he's taking root, he is becoming strong to his roots in a way that the tree will later remain that way. I'm assuming that this is not just the two stages in life when you're in yeshiva and later. It might be true every single day, the times when we spend in davening and learning and the times when we spend in the real world, which is the Jewish way. We're not supposed to spend a whole day in yeshiva, a whole day just in shul studying and davening and learning. We're supposed to go out and make a living. But we're certainly not supposed to do just that. We're supposed to spend time every day in davening and learning. So perhaps it doesn't say it explicitly, but I'm suggesting that it's safe to say that that's true there too. Where do you see the human tree? This concept that you grow out, but you remain rooted. That even when you go out in the rest of the day, you still have the Torah thoughts that you learned in your morning shir or your night shir, or the davening. It's still happening. It's still germinating. We're still connected to that time of Torah study. And similarly, when you are in shul, you're doing it in such a real way that it carries you for the rest of the day. And one might say, which this too is not explicit, that how do you do that? How do the few hours, whatever the time in the morning that you give for davening and learning, affect the whole tree, the whole day, when it's done in a way that not just v'yadaita, you know the words of Torah, but you brought it to heart. And perhaps that's how you root it in a way that the rest of the day, it empowers you.